Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to episode number 110 of the VK Bros on a beautiful, sunny, springtime, clear morning up here in beautiful Brisbane, Vegas. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm good. I did get, just like I said before, I dead set thought I was having a heart attack this morning.
Yeah.
And I think it's down to Domino's. I had Domino's last night.
All right.
Now, I try to go to my... there's a place in Brisbane that has the best pizza.
Yep.
And I try to go there
Give
all
me a
the
shout
time.
out.
Arrivederci.
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 I think we've spoken about Arrivederci before.
But the problem is, on a Friday night, for me to get there on Coronation Drive,
Right.
it can take me 40 minutes to get down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a Domino's the next street over.
Yep.
So I had that. I had a pizza and a garlic bread, the whole thing,
Yep.
which I don't usually do, but I had the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart was burning so much this morning that I woke up, put my Apple Watch on to check if I was having a heart attack. Because I thought it was just like a pull, so I was like sort of moving around in the bed.
Yeah.
And no, that's not it. Okay, no, something's happening. So yeah, I put the watch on. I was like 98 beats per minute in bed. It's not a heart attack.
No,
it's
no.
198 would be a bit of a problem. And then like there's a cardiogram or something. It's a different thing, and it says like in bold, "This cannot tell you if you're having a heart attack." And I'm like, I think you can. I think you can. So yeah, there was that. But I wanted to talk about the biggest news that happened this week. Do you know what that is?
Well, it would be the Queen dying, wouldn't it?
No, this is a bigger story than that no one's talking about.
Right.
The James Webb telescope looks like it's disproven the Big Bang.
Interesting.
Okay, so...
Okay. I have not heard anything about this. Now, I have not had my ear to the ground on literally anything this week.
Yeah.
Been a bit of a chaotic week, all things considered. All right, hit me with it.
So I took some notes last night because it is a pretty big story.
Yep.
So everyone knows what the Big Bang is, right? We
Yep.
think that our universe started effectively out of nothing and exploded out in this ever-expanding universe.
Yep.
Okay? That has been the theory. I believe it came out from like the 1500. A priest or something came up with the idea. And then scientists thought they had proven that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like the JWST, the photos show that our universe isn't as big as we thought.
Right.
Because the perspective, so the way I'm going to try to explain it. Okay, so if you imagine, and all the things tie into this example, so the YouTube viewers are probably going to get a better, I'll try and illustrate as best as possible. If you had an explosion, right, and everything moves out from that explosion, right?
Yep.
Now, you could also assume that because, like, in the void of space, there should be nothing stopping those things from still going.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So that's the ever-expanding part. And we also know that, like, stars kind of grow over time as well. Like, and suns grow, like, bigger and bigger, more dense, more massive, until they, like, expire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind
supernova.
That was our understanding. So with that rationale, you should say that the galaxies further away from us should be much more massive than the ones close to us. Well, JWST has kind of disproven that. The first story was like, we found way more galaxies than we thought existed. The second thing they found is, well, those galaxies aren't anywhere near as big as what we thought they should be,
Right.
given the Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
Now, also, there is no evidence, there appears to be no evidence, or not as much, so they have witnessed galaxies crashing into each other, and it does something to their formation. And this thing I watched last night about it was like, if you crash your car, you know, like you look for evidence of the dents on the car to know that it's been in contact with something.
Yeah.
So it does some stuff to like the way it orbits, the stuff that orbits around it. You can see that stuff. And the idea being there was all these massive explosions and all this stuff punching together, which created our universe.
Right.
Well, they can't really find any evidence of that either.
Right.
Now, this is the one that I like the most. when you do that explosion action, right? Say the first things and the farthest things away should be more separated, right? Than like their counterparts.
Yeah.
Because they're they're
You
moving
imagine
away
like a
constantly.
shotgun spread. Like the
Yeah,
further
yeah.
out the blast goes, the more all
Correct.
the pellets spread. Yeah.
Well, JWST can look so far that they've realised that there's like not as much space between the farthest galaxies than they thought.
Right.
So literally, you know, all creationists are like, told you so.
Yeah.
Right? And
Well, creationists, you always have the ace up the sleeve of even with the Big Bang Theory. Yeah, okay, cool. So what caused the Big Bang in the first place?
well,
like
yeah,
the
I mean,
divine
I
spark
actually,
of-
I actually argue that the creationist story and the Big Bang Theory were effectively the same thing, just
Yeah.
narrated from different people.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you could be perceived as both things.
Yeah, but the question is always like, okay, so you had the Big Bang in space that, created all the matter moving outwards, but it's also like what created space in the first place.
Yeah, so that's another question.
Yeah.
That is another question. So,
I thought you were going to say the telescope could zoom out so far. They literally saw God, and he was holding up a sign going, I made it, idiots.
we might be getting there, but just on that creationist theory thing, I wondered if thousands and thousands of years ago we didn't have the ability to quantify the magnitude of our existence, and therefore a story was applied to it so that we could understand something about how we became available. So like
That is-
like God
yeah.
created the earth in 7 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what if it was 7 billion years, but we broke it down into days to make it
Yeah,
easier?
and that's I think that's got to be the case, because I think cultures throughout history have always told stories to explain things they didn't understand.
Yeah.
So you'd have, Zeus was the thunder god because we didn't understand what thunder and lightning were.
Yeah.
Like you just say, oh, it's a god being vengeful or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think narratives have always played a part in our culture.
So that was, to me, that's what the biggest news of the week was. I can't believe no one's really...
Do you reckon
talking
that's
about
what, like, when the Queen found out about that, she had a heart attack? She's like, this is crazy. I've been alive for a long time.
it.
Heard a
Maybe
lot
the
of things.
secrets are coming out. We should talk about the Queen. What was your take on it? Rest in peace, Queen
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
was it? What did you say? God save the King. Yeah, the Queen is dead. God save the King.
Yeah,
because
and
Chucky Charles is in charge.
And I saw a meme yesterday that said it'll take all of my might to not say King Charles Spaniard.
Spaniard. Yeah. Well, are they going to become popular now?
Yeah,
Like
maybe,
King Charles
probably.
Cavaliers
Probably.
with big ears.
Ugly. What?
I thought it was interesting. Look, obviously, there's always two sides. Like you look on social media, and on one side you've got the people who revere the Queen and are very sad about it and are in mourning and appreciating her for the work she's done over her life. And on the other hand, you've got all the haters going, "Oh, yeah, what did she do? Like she just got funded by taxpayers her whole life and blah blah blah." And they're both right. Again,
Well, I think the
in
latter
a-
one is bullshit. But
yeah, in a way. Because the thing that I was going to say is that, like, it's not the Queen's, it's not Elizabeth's fault that she was put into that situation. Like, and if you asked any single person who was put into that situation, would you just give it up and disband the monarchy and hand over all your money and power to the people?
Ask Meghan Markle.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't.
She's gone, hey, Netflix, got any money?
Yeah.
Hey, Spotify, can I have some money, please?
Yeah. So, look, I think that she has lived a very interesting life. Like we spoke about this a few weeks ago when people got the photos of all the leaders of the world and like all the American presidents that she has seen come and go, and her photos with all of them over time. Like, she has lived a fascinating life.
And I'll say this, she's a very impressive lady. So to be given it at 25 years old, to work as a mechanic in the war, the thing that I appreciate about her the most, she drives herself.
Yeah, right.
So she's a fan of cars.
Yep.
She's a fan of horse carriage. She's a horse nut. Loves a punt, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I would too if I was punting with taxpayer money.
They're her subjects.
Yeah, her loyal subjects.
Yeah. And the people that said that too, maybe I'll say check your privilege.
Ooh.
because she gave you the ability to pay tax to live in a place like that when she was taken over, where her family was taken over the world.
Yeah. When did the monarchy allow for the installation of a government? Is that all? Because I don't know anything about it, to be perfectly frank.
I think it's actually a lot later than you think.
Yeah.
It might have been for World War One.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might have been.
Do your own research on it. But that's one of the things that makes me go, that is a way of abdicating power to the people, even though she kept her station. And again, I don't know if it's her that did it or if it was a previous monarch that allowed the people to have their own democratically elected government to run things. But in a way, that was a way of going, yeah, cool, I'm still the queen and ultimately I'm the big dog, but...
No, 1707.
Okay, so it wasn't her. It was... Who was it?
That was His Majesty's government. Oh, back to Boy Summer. You women have had it. You know, you've had a female head of state for 70 years now.
Yeah.
Now it's time for the boys.
We're out of the toxic matriarchy finally.
Yeah, it's the boys' turn to have a go. The government of the United Kingdom, domestically referred to as His Majesty's government, is the central exclusive authority of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The government is led by Prime Minister, currently Liz Truss, since 6th of September 2022.
That was an interesting thing.
We'll get to that. Yeah. Who selects all other ministers. The country has had the Conservative-led government since 2010. No, but where he is...
Anyway, you said it was back in the 1700s. I just think that's really interesting because, yeah, anyone who's hating on the monarchy, at least... the monarchy actually allowed for a democratically elected government to be elected by the people to run things.
Yeah.
I think that is a big thing in itself.
What a lot of people don't realise is the UK, the British Empire was one of the largest empires to ever have existed. You know, and yeah, they did some atrocities.
Everyone's done some atrocities.
Everyone's done some atrocities, but I'm impressed by the lady. She's a Jag fan.
Yep.
And I like the fact that, like, we went and saw her horse carriage collection. Oh, yeah. And, like, she's passionate about horse carriages like I am about cars.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, she's an impressive person. You know, at 96 years old, you know, I'm not like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, you know why it's happened.
Yeah.
She's really old. But it'll be interesting to see
She survived COVID too, didn't she? Didn't she have COVID a few months ago?
Well, to me, this is kind of like the lingering effects of it, because she got COVID. No, it's probably a while ago.
Yeah, I thought it was like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, yeah. But it's... I mean, it is... I suppose it's very significant. Like, I would say don't... Especially if you're a young person, don't sleep on the idea that, like, this is a major milestone in Western...
Yeah, and there's going to be flow-on effects from this too, which will remain to be seen. Like, there's some things that I've even learnt out of it because, you know, everyone forgets that essentially she was still our head of state. Like...
Yeah.
And there are ramifications for that. And I only found this out by looking at Voice of Victoria last night. But every state in Australia except Victoria has actually put laws in place which meant that the... ministers don't need to be re-sworn in if the monarch does pass away. So Victoria, everyone needs to be sworn in again. So, like, you know how Parliament has said that they're closing down for 2 weeks because, you know, they're in mourning, so you close down Parliament, don't go to work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But Victoria itself, I think it's a little bit chaotic because they actually all need to be re-sworn in again, and I think there's a process that needs to happen with Charles first before Charles can be in a position to, I don't know, bestow the authority on whoever it is, whether it's the Governor-General or whatever, to re-swear in all the parliamentarians in Victoria, which is obviously hectic because you're also only a couple of months out from their election too.
But didn't we already establish that, like, didn't someone work in Parliament for, like, 2 years and they realised they'd never been sworn in? Wasn't that, like, last year?
That wasn't parliamentarians, that was... police officers?
That's right. Yeah.
So there was a whole bunch of fines that were handed out by police officers in Victoria who'd never been sworn in formally, so they were all null and void.
A lot of people might not think that the British have much significance, but look at the name of the state of Victoria: New South Wales, Queensland.
Yeah.
Like, it's
this is her state.
Yeah. So It is significant. It was the longest. She was the longest reigning monarch.
Monarch, yep.
So yeah, it is definitely significant. And yeah, we'll see how old Kingy C goes.
Yeah, look, power to her to get to 96. That's a good innings. Like, say what you want about, the medical care she had available to her and the food she had available. I mean, she would have been eating based off the 90s food pyramid for a long period of time, which is not very good for you. So to get to 96, good on her. Well
What
done.
does that mean we saw? What's the new food pyramid? SRIs. SSRIs.
Yeah, SSRIs are at the bottom, at the base, and then you had like vaccines and I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah,
But it was funny. Very, very
funny.
funny. Yeah, so God save the king. Chucky Charles in charge. I saw all the memes too of like, man who's been unemployed for 73 years finally has to go to work. He's like,
So we'll keep an eye on that. I think it's 10 days a morning or something.
Something like that, yeah.
There's a bit of pomp, but I think it's probably a good opportunity for us to become a republic.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that as soon as I heard of it as well, because it is, it is the line in the sand that you could go to referendum and you could do it now. And I was actually talking to Dad about this yesterday. Oh, a fun story. Dad cooked for Queen Elizabeth.
I didn't know that.
I'm sure you would have known about it.
I know he did the King of Sweden.
Yeah, on a cruise ship, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. She was on, I think it was at I can't remember which cruise liner it was, but Dad was chefing.
Titanic.
Yeah, the Titanic, probably. So Dad was chefing on it and, cooked for the Queen. So, fun fact.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, I was talking to Dad about whether or not this would be an opportunity to turn into a republic. And one of the things that I think became very apparent for me after the last 2 years is Australia's constitution was created when basically we were a penal colony. Like, the rights for the people are not as present in our constitution as they are in other Western countries, like the United States, like the UK even. So now is probably a really good opportunity for us to go, maybe we need to right some of those wrongs for the people.
And we need to move Australia Day.
That gives you...
That day is... and it's so funny because there's so much resistance to it.
Yeah.
Yet if you ask the people that resist it, don't even know what it stands for. It's not a day for Australians. It's a day for the British.
Yeah.
It's when they sent the first fleet here. Like, it's not. I want to move it, and then all those people that defended it, they just don't want it moved to something early on in the year because we had too many public holidays at the start of the year.
Yeah, remember they moved the Queen's birthday in Queensland, was it? I think, because we had too many public holidays start of the year, so they moved it to the second half.
But I think I'd like to see, and then my question would be, if we did become a republic, do you change the style of government that we have? I know it's a big change, it's hard to do, but are we doing it in the most effective way? Yeah,
do you need to move away from representative democracy and more to a participative democracy where we send big issues to referendum and vote on it?
Yeah.
Rather than just voting in people who are supposed to vote in our best interests, and oftentimes we've seen don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's actually more significant than I think people really realise, because the chain of events this could spark off could be huge for our country. I'm with you on the moving of Australia Day, but now is the right time to do it, because now you've actually got the opportunity. You literally go, okay, we've been wanting to have a more inclusive country for a long, long time. There's been division on both sides of those, all the arguments, but on this particular argument, it's been very, very divisive. So now you've got an opportunity where you can turn our country into a republic, bring everyone together under a new flag on a new day.
Yep.
Like, let's say that you did it this week, it could be whatever date in September.
Yeah.
And literally create the inclusive country that we've been talking about for a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something worth considering. I mean, Labor government's not really into royals, are they? Like, they're not.
I don't think so. No.
So this could
be lined up for it.
Yeah. So, and we take all the really important issues to referendum, like gay marriage. I think that's the only thing I can remember we've ever done referendum. We did it twice.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I remember a second referendum, but it was the first one on gay marriage that failed.
It was like, hey guys, remember, like, this is like if, like, we're saying gays are going to get married, guys.
Yeah.
Like, do you know that? Like, gays.
Yeah, and like to give you an example of how it works in other countries, like Switzerland. Switzerland is a more of a like citizens participate in the democracy, so they got a referendum all the time, and their system's really interesting. We've spoken about it before, where if you get enough people who say sign a petition that they want a certain thing changed, it goes to a referendum. That referendum gets voted on by the people. I don't know if it's compulsory vote or not. I think it is. And whatever the majority is in that referendum, that becomes the result that then sticks in place and it can't be challenged for 6 years. So it actually gives you enough time to really try that, whatever that change is, for that 6 year period. And then at the end of 6 years, you go, okay, do you guys want to continue with this or should we change it again? And then it goes to referendum again. And I feel like that is I think that's a way of getting more engagement
For sure.
from people in their own countries as well. Like,
Sorry,
you know,
that's shaking still.
yeah, that's cool. We talk about all the time about how, in my opinion, the biggest issue with Australian politics is the compulsory vote, because all that the governments do is they appeal to the disinterested majority. Because majority of Australians don't give a crap about politics.
Yeah.
They have to go to vote, so they just go, all right, either I really hate either the incumbent or the other person, so I'm going to vote against them, or this person's promising me the most money for free, I'm going to vote for them. So they either get their votes bought or they do like a protest vote. I think we saw a lot of protest votes in the last election. And I think, if you have more participative democracy, like an example in Switzerland, they voted on vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
That went to referendum and it only just got voted out. Like it was close. I think it was it would have been somewhere around 52-48%.
Even with all the propaganda.
Yeah. Still got voted
Interesting.
out. Yeah.
Oh, shout out to Chris Butenhouse too, because he was the one that said to me when I was a young man, because when I was 19 years old, and I said, I don't give a shit about politics, I don't care.
Yep.
And he just said to me, he goes, one day you will. And now I've had the chance, I spoke to a couple of young guys and we were talking, had an open conversation about how they voted, and I could see why they voted the way that they did, and it made sense. And I was like, once you start earning a little bit of money, and you'll realise there's like certain people want that to happen, certain people don't.
Yep.
And but it's good that you're engaged. I was happy that these 19-year-olds were more engaged in, like, they knew more policy stuff than I did when I was 19.
Yeah.
So I'll give them, definitely give them credit for that.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is obviously government has really been thrust into the forefront of our attention in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like when we were 19, government wasn't really sticking their nose into every single thing that you were doing every single day. So
I heard Scott Morrison had anointed himself king.
Yeah, no, he was Queen. He took her portfolio, Queen of England. Yeah, look, fascinating stuff. Let us know in the comments. What do you guys think about the Queen and the monarchy? And did you let's do a little poll. Do you guys
care?
Well, do you guys think that this is a good opportunity to turn into a republic? If you could change our political system in Australia, what do you guys want to see? Because obviously we've got our thoughts on it, but best thing about democracy is you get all different voices and we come up with what sort of suits the majority and move forward from there.
Is democracy flawed? Is a democracy just holding us back? Do we need to go to do we need to have our own principality? Does who's the most, does Hugh Jackman need to be the
triple threat Hugh Jackman,
the new king of Australia? Do we have to have our own?
Only if he dresses up as Wolverine. Like, that should be part of the deal. He has to have the mutton chops. Because we need to bring back Australia's...
Camacho?
President Camacho.
Yeah, Camacho.
Yeah, I can't remember his full name. Like, for Idiocracy. We do need to bring back our national identity. Because that's been my biggest pet peeve from the last few years. Is the Australia that I thought we had, it's not it anymore. Like, I thought we were... the Crocodile Dundee, tough, laid-back larrikin, we're not. And I'd love to see that brought back again.
And it's funny too, because I think, a lot of foreigners would look at Australia and Australians, and it's very easy, our rep, it's easy to make the correlation to a penal colony.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean? It's easy to say, well, you ruffians,
Yeah.
And that is our history, and it's something that I would like to separate us from as well,
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us what you think. Tell us what you think.
Yeah. Interesting times ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I caught an interesting story because I can see you floundering a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
my guts, man.
yeah,
I'm in pain.
you're having Domino's belly.
Yeah, I'm done. Never again.
That'll
never again.
that'll be the next thing that the TGO puts massive amounts of funding into, is trials on the effect of Domino's.
But I ordered the
on giving you
mRNA on thin
myocarditis.
crust.
Yeah. So speaking of the shots, literally only caught this very briefly last night, and have only been able to find 2 articles to substantiate it. But in the UK, now it's interesting. Obviously, when there's change, it's always a bit of a smokescreen to make other changes.
Yeah.
Right. So you've obviously had the Queen passing away. Just prior to that, you've had the new Prime Minister sworn in.
Yep.
Liz
Truss.
Liz Truss. Don't know anything about her. Don't have any comments on her. If you've got comments on Liz Truss, let us know.
She did say that she was ready to push the button, the nuke button.
Really?
Yeah, they found some interview with her, and like
Great.
the answer wasn't. It was a stupid question. Like it was a public event, and this really bombastic like interview was like, "You're about to be in control of the one of the largest nuclear weapon arsenals in the world. Are you prepared, Liz Truss, to push the button?" She's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Whoa, you could have said, I'll try and do everything else." And
Yeah. No, she was straight into it.
She's like, "Hell yeah."
Gangster. Yeah, wow. Look, again, it'll be interesting to see how she goes. Like I said, don't know anything about her. I think, to me personally, Boris Johnson was a pretty embarrassing national leader to have, with the way he looks, the way he talks, the way he acts. Like, it was all around pretty embarrassing for
lock down the whole country, except for us, so we can party.
Yeah, except for Downing Street, so we can have a drink.
Yeah, we all remain socially distant. Oh, not that footage. Not that footage.
Yeah.
Clearly not.
So look, she's got an opportunity. But one story I did catch was that the UK Health Services Agency has just removed the recommendation to vaccinate kids aged 5 to 11. So it's not actually even going to be offered to those kids anymore. And I'm pretty sure they never authorised it for kids under 5 either.
I don't think the UK did. It's
No.
just us, wasn't it?
Us in America.
Canada?
Oh, and Canada.
Yeah.
And the People's Republic of Canada.
Yeah.
So the UK...
Actually, that was a funny... Sorry, just a real quick side note. When they were showing all like the Queen coverage, that Trudeau, he was such a suck ass. Every time they're in the same thing, he'd like run to a side. Queensy.
Yeah.
It was like pathetic. Anyway, not a Trudeau fan.
Oh no, but I'm starting to look more at Trudeau like I look at Dan Andrews. Like I was speaking about Dan last week. Dweeby guy, but he's a gangster.
Yeah, must be a gangster.
Trudeau's a gangster too.
Yeah.
You can only lie with a straight face every single day like that if you're a truly
straight up gangster.
Yeah. He's a fantastic actor. Like, Canadian Parliament is like the gayest soap opera ever. It's worse than watching The Bold and the Beautiful because it's all about impassioned speeches. Have you ever watched any of it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's
a performance.
It's performance.
It's pantomime.
Yeah, pantomime is probably a better way of referring to it. But yeah, really, really interesting story. It's because the UK have definitely erred on the side of caution when it comes to these vaccines more than any other Western country. And they recently also changed some recommendations around pregnant women getting it, which got really confused. I watched a Dr. John Campbell video on it. And the Green Book, which is like their vaccination handbook for healthcare workers, their Bible, so to speak, that only got updated in August to say, jab them up. But then all the other government guidance is like, they should speak to their doctor about the risks and the benefits.
But could it be like here where they said, go speak to your doctor, and then, doctor's like...
For audio listeners, I just put a gun to Alex's head while I was saying that. Yeah, it could be something similar, but
it also gives some plausible deniability when if they've got differing if there's differing news out there, it gives you a way out if things when things go bad.
But also, part of me wonders if the change in leadership of the country is the opportunity being taken now to sort of just update guidance away from doing this stuff, and then when all the bad stuff comes out in the future, you just blame the previous
for sure.
government.
Yeah. Well, did we not? We predicted
That's
this.
right.
We
Like, you
predicted
just
that it would
change the
happen here.
puppets.
Yeah.
And something else that we predicted too is obviously moving out of the COVID sphere into like climate change and climate lockdowns, and you're starting to see a lot of the signals for that, especially coming out of Europe.
Well, I want to come back. I do want to come back to that, but just quickly on the Rona thing. Now I've lost my train of thought. I listened to an Unheard interview with a guy.
Great channel, by the way.
Yeah. Shout out to Freddie Say. It's he does really good. What I like about him is, I believe he's a red pillar.
Yep.
But he's quite happy to play the blue pill card against someone that's red pillar on his show.
Yeah, he's sort of like Discernible. Matt Wong from Discernible, he's
Yeah.
the same. Like, I would say he's more red pill than blue pill, but he even says it all the time. He goes, I will literally put anyone on my platform, and when they're on, I will support them and try to make them look as good as I possibly can.
Well, I would say Freddie Say does the opposite. I would say...
Oh, he just challenges everyone?
Challenges every... Yeah. So he's red, but if there's a blue pill guy that's in there, he'll try and push hard up against it. Likewise, if there's a red pill, instead of just two red pillars jerking each other off, he will push back.
Which is what this show is.
Yeah, 100%. Always been on red.
Yeah.
And but he'll push back. Anyway, the guy that he had on, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a statistician, and he's gone through all the data about the excess deaths. Everyone's talking about excess
Everyone's
deaths.
starting to talk about this now.
Yeah. Again, it was another kind of prediction of the show that we had, that excess deaths were going to go up, and we thought it was going to be solely due to the vaccine and the fact that hospitals weren't seeing people when, during lockdowns and things, no one was getting their proper care.
It wasn't just that. It was all the... Like, it was mainly the COVID mitigation measures that were put in place. So it was vaccines, it was not getting proper medical care, it was lockdowns, depression, people losing businesses, income, all that sort of stuff. Like, the virus is one thing, but one of the things that John Campbell spoke about the other day when he was speaking about excess deaths is, what's concerning about it is the excess deaths are not attributable to COVID. They're excess deaths in addition to the extra deaths that you're getting from COVID.
Yeah. It's like factoring COVID deaths out.
That's right.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, it's also like it's excess deaths over and above the 5-year average, which is an inflated 5-year average because it's based on 2020 and 2021 included. So when you factor in the additional deaths we got from COVID, that obviously lifts the 5-year average score. And then so if you've then got excess deaths in addition to those, it's higher again.
Well, and this is where I was a little bit frustrated, and I think Freddie was a little bit too with this guy, because the guy was like, no, it's all within just normal bounds. And he's like, yeah, but it's excess. So how can you explain excess? Like,
that's right.
Excess
the term
death,
excess.
Yeah, it means it's in excess. And it is, the guy said it's definitely inflated. And it's not on stuff that, like, what's not inflated is old age deaths. Old age deaths are still old age deaths, but everything else is inflated.
Yeah, and it's as you go down through the age brackets, you're seeing an increase in excess deaths in all age brackets.
Yeah.
And like John Campbell was saying, that maybe not so much in Australia because we were relatively protected from COVID in the first year. Like, we only had 29,404 cases.
Yeah.
I've spoken about this a little bit. Maybe it was 28,404. I'll fuck that number up just because I gave myself big ups. But we were pretty well protected from at the beginning. But in countries like the UK and America, where they got smashed up front from COVID, you would assume that in the alpha variant, which was more deadly than all the subsequent variants, that the elderly people, the elderly or the frail or the immunocompromised, unfortunately would have passed away in that first year or year and a half. In 2020 and mid-2021. So the really concerning thing is that this excess death number that we're experiencing in 2022, the frail are already gone.
Yeah.
So obviously there are some old and frail who are still accounting for those numbers, but it's across the whole age spectrum, and that's what's so concerning about it. Like, in Australia, the latest figure I saw for 2022, we are experiencing 16% high, excess deaths.
Yeah.
So 16% higher than what we should expect based off the last 5-year average, which, as I explained, is overinflated because of the COVID deaths as well.
Yeah.
Mind you, we didn't have that many COVID deaths. So I wouldn't apply that same level of weight to that statistic as I would in the UK and America.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's still 16% higher than we should expect this time of year. So you have to wonder what the cause of all that stuff is.
Yeah, and I suppose the other, and just sort of pivoting a little bit, the other thing that I'm still so, like, that I can't seem to rationalise in my mind is how there is still no workers available in Australia. So I know that there's no internationals.
Yeah.
I know that, and I can feel that in my business. Like I said, I used to do a lot of business with students, and a lot of those students are the ones that go get jobs here.
Yeah, especially in agriculture and stuff, fruit picking and everything.
Yeah, the slave labour, but like a lot of entry-level jobs they will pick up here. And none of my network has been able to fill the spaces.
Yeah, okay.
I was talking to a recruiter during the week. He said, and he recruits for like warehousing and like packing, things like that.
Yeah.
He said, if you rock up, you've got the job.
Yeah, yeah.
There is no prerequisite. If you're there
Yeah, right.
and you've got pants on, you start work.
Yeah, don't even need a shirt. Or
Yeah,
shoes.
yeah. It is that, and he didn't know because he's only young. He's 20 years old. But he doesn't. He's never experienced what it was like.
Yeah,
when it's the other way around.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be remedy. I know they're talking about it in the news, like what they're going to do for allowing people in. But I don't. I have the feeling that it's not a policy issue. It's a previous policy issue which makes us appealing to the internationals. I don't think they're coming here because there's better options.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot involved in this if I had to just shoot from the hip on it. I think number one is we in Australia, if you only watch Australian media, you think that we're all good. But if you've watched international media in the last 2 years, people are scared of coming here.
Yeah.
Because Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world. And we had the really harsh quarantine requirements, which a lot of countries didn't have. Like, I spoke to a friend of mine the other day who had to fly back during the pandemic, but couldn't get a direct flight to Brisbane. So had to fly from where she was coming from to Sydney, had to quarantine there for 2 weeks, and then had to fly to Brisbane and quarantine again.
Yeah.
So, like, where is the appeal? Because you're also paying $3,000 for those quarantine hotels. So it's already expensive enough to travel to a country.
Free sex, but...
Oh, yeah. Free secky sex.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got an extra $6,000 up your sleeve to come over here and then do an entry-level shitter job for less than minimum wage because you're a migrant or an international worker. So I think that's one part of it. I think another part of it is in the last 2 years, unfortunately, we've spooked a lot of people into staying home, and a lot of, I think, maybe younger people who would generally be the people that would be trying to go out there to find these entry-level jobs to get themselves a foot into the workplace and make some money or whatever. I think that the incentive's just not there. Like, you look at the cost of living going up. You know, if you're going to go out and get I don't know what minimum wage is for some of these roles, but is it even worth doing? Especially when the government was still handing out money a lot of the time.
I get that part, but I don't think there is any assistance anymore. So then, like, how
yeah, but
they
just stay at home at mum and dad's house because mum and dad will give you assistance.
There definitely could be an element of that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I also think too that maybe I listened to this really interesting podcast. I can't remember if I spoke about this on the pod, but really interesting podcast with this. He was a political economic strategist for one of the minor parties in Victoria, but he's been doing it for like 30, 40 years. And one of the things that he explained, which I found fascinating, was the real reason why he believes Australian governments have been propping up the housing market for the last 30 years.
Okay.
And what he thinks it is it gives the illusion that we're a wealthy country.
I've been saying that.
Yeah.
I've been saying that the whole time because it adds to your GDP.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing to do. To like all this money towards it just pumps it up, and now everyone's, you've moved households from having 50 grand in assets.
Yeah, like net wealth, 50 grand to $1 million bucks. But the thing is, if you look around, wages have stagnated for 20 years. They haven't gone anywhere. And you look at what normally drives things like, wages and growth. You go, okay, innovation, like,
all the business, small business, like productivity.
That's right. And then you look what else has happened in the last 20 years. We have got no manufacturing sector in this country. That only happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So all the things that you would normally use for nation building are gone.
Yeah.
So it's like the government, to try to keep
Well,
people...
tourism's now been cooked now too.
Well, yeah, tourism is cooked,
Yeah.
like, and has been for a long time. But the government has, I feel like, we're only seeing now how, number one, reliant on foreign workers we were
Yep.
to do the shit jobs that people didn't really want to do.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, we've all been tricked into thinking that we are going well because, housing prices keep going up. That must mean that everyone's going good. And it's like, well, in reality, you're not.
Well, problem is, you can have this wealth tied up in your house, but you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, because
Like, what are you going to do?
If you sell it, you have to go and pay overs for another house somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or you're paying rent through the nose because the rent's based off the mortgage that the owner has over that property. So
I mean, negative gearing does help that.
to a degree, but I think if you asked renters, you would see that rent prices have gone up a fair bit over in the last year or so.
Mine's gone backwards.
Really?
So mine, we've been in 3 places since we've been in Brisbane,
Yeah.
and our rent's gotten cheaper every time.
Yeah, but have you, like, they may still be rent increases on what the previous tenant was paying.
Maybe.
Potentially, I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, it was interesting because I was like, that's a very interesting take on it, of like, it sort of keeps the people, because if you just overnight went, okay, every house, the actual value of it's only 50% of what it is now, like, everyone would think that the world's going to explode
Yeah.
and fall over, but it wouldn't.
No.
Because if my house, which is 600, became worth 300, well, I could still sell that and go and buy another $300,000 house.
Correct.
Right? And then it sort of brings everything back into line again. And I do wonder if we're going to get any sort of mass rectification like that.
Well, see,
in the future.
I still think we are in bubble town, even though the stock market has an absolute shellacking, especially US stock market in particular. Look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's down to like under 30,000 Australian dollars
Yeah.
now. But I know heaps of people who are building pools, who are building new houses, who are getting extensions, who are getting, and that's all the kind of stuff in a stagnated economy. That stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or there's less of it.
Yeah.
And look, aspects of it are the fact that I'm older, my demographic is making good money now.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's the whole idea of interest rate rises is to add a level of austerity where you're going to stop, you're trying to slow the volatility of money.
That's right.
But it doesn't seem to have slowed. To me,
No,
it still
because-
seems like people have ramped.
Yeah, and in a way, I feel like all it's really going to do is, it's not going to slow down the purchasing of properties or anything like that. It's just going to make poor and middle class people not be able to afford their mortgages and fire sell their houses to rich people.
Yeah, okay. I do want to say this though. Like, I had a conversation with a young guy, and we were all talking. And there's another guy he's got quite a few investment properties. He's about my age, and the young guy goes, "Oh man, I just can't believe it. Like, I could never do it. I could never buy." And I said to him, "Have you actually properly thought about buying?" He's like, "Oh, I've thought about it." I'm like, "But have you done any numbers? Have you, do you know how much deposit you need? Do you know what the payments are going to be?" No. And I said, "Well, if you had a plan and you executed the plan, you could have one."
Yeah,
Now,
Yeah.
so where I think that sentiment that you've just said is, I don't know how real it is. I don't believe it to be real, because if it is not, now maybe it's unreasonable to buy the $1 million property as your first in the hot area, but that argument could have been made in the 80s when someone wasn't willing to spend $15,000 on a house, so they had to go spend $5,000 to go further out. Do you know what I mean? I think all that same stuff is now. I do not think it's harder to get into the property game now. It's just you've just got to make the sacrifices if that's what you want.
Look, I don't think it's impossible to get into, and obviously if you want to get into it, sacrifices need to be made. But this is what my statement's based on. When a lot of people who have complained about interest rates going up, and a lot of the pushback is, who would have bought a house thinking that rates weren't going to go up? Because they were buying them at record low rates. And I don't think people were expecting the triple whammy of rates to go, like this has been the most. I think are we at the highest interest rates now since 2014, maybe.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, and with more rate rises to come. So
I think two more. So I predicted 7, and we're up to 5 rate rises.
Yeah, and I think we'll get more before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so you've had sort of not unprecedented, but very quick rate rises in the last 6 months, factored on top of increase in energy costs. Fuel's gone through the roof, electricity's gone through the roof. So you've got that factored on top of it as well. You've also got the cost of living as far as fruit, vegetables, just general things. So it's not just interest rates going up, therefore people can't afford it. I think it's interest rates on top of a lot of those things. And then you factor in things too of like, a lot of people probably bought their houses when they're running their small businesses, which their businesses have gone under in the last 2 years. So the amount of income that they've had coming in has changed. Or, like we were just saying before, wages have stagnated for the last 20 years, but housing price has gone through the roof. I think as a percentage of your annual income in the last 20 years, like what would houses have been 20 years ago?
Well, I can tell you this because I had this conversation yesterday.
Okay.
When I bought my place in 2008, my mortgage cost was 80% of my wage.
Yeah, so
even at the time, if your living expenses were 50%, so your lodging expenses were 50% of your wage, you were deemed as under financial pressure.
Yeah,
and mine was
so
80%.
So today, a person in the same situation as you would not be given a loan.
Yes, correct.
So that's something to consider. Obviously, that makes it harder to get in because some people, like you weren't in the best financial position to get in. But once you were in, you could work your ass at it and you could maintain it, right? But that is one.
But that's coming back.
Okay,
because
maybe.
Banks are flexing now. I mean, with someone sent me, there's a bank offering 3% deposits again. That's what I got. A 3% dipper. And
also, so what did the price of your property do between when you bought it and when you sold it?
It went up.
Yeah.
330. It went up 160 grand.
So
in 15 years.
So as a percentage of its value, what's that?
How do you figure that?
30%.
Yeah.
What have wages gone up by in that time?
Well, okay, I would say from 08 to 15 they went up by that.
But we're talking about now. I don't think wages went up by 30% between 08 and 15. Yours did as you got promoted through the industry.
Yeah, but it's natural to... Yeah.
But also going 08, then global financial crisis.
But that's kind of my point. My point is that there are these ebbs and flows of economies, and they actually don't last as long. Like, that 15 years is not really that long a time.
For sure, especially if you're in the investor class who's poised to strike now.
Yeah.
Because there will be people who will be selling properties now because they can't afford them. And the Johnny on the spot people available to buy these things are investors, superannuation companies, people with money who are available to make these purchases now.
Yeah, and look, those people will always win.
Which doesn't stop the velocity. That's what I'm saying, though. It doesn't stop the velocity of the money. So getting back to the original point, you're talking about how the whole point of putting the interest rates up is to stop the velocity of money or slow it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that.
Well, no, it does because it's the non-investor class that it does it to. Because what happens is you have a house and now your interest rate's gone up from, in the late 2s to the mid 5s, you no longer have, your mortgage has gone up $500 a month, so you don't have that $500 to spend on other shit. That's where it's supposed to slow the velocity. That's the idea. I agree with you to a point that there's still going to be house deals that are done. Mm-hmm. There is a simmering of the market. I know that for sure. Just on the fuel pricing, real quick, because fuel is cheap today.
Yeah.
But people need to understand the barrel price is $86.
I know, and that's the thing. Where's the cost coming from?
So that is...
Because I'm seeing all these news articles now of better fill up your tank before October because that's when the 20 cent per litre tax reduction is ending.
I thought it ended last month.
No, they put it back on again. But apparently it's supposed to be until October now.
Yeah.
So that's another
that's
thing.
That's a gouge.
This is a gouge, 100%. And the fact that we have... a Labor government in charge who's not calling this out as a gouge, because what was the What was the price of fuel per barrel a year ago?
So last year, so 1 year, a year ago, $70.
So $70. Okay. What was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, it was. So you're saying 2020?
Yeah.
Well, it dropped to $20 a barrel. That is an anomaly. So
Yeah.
if you said this one here, it's $45 a barrel.
So $45 a barrel. Okay. So look, maybe that isn't that bad, all things considered.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, didn't fuel get up to like $140 a barrel or something fairly recently, like within the last 6 months?
No, I think that was so the highest was 150. Oh, this is US, 115. So yeah, you could say 150.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
140
Australian dollars.
As a bit of a...
So it's almost half what it was.
Yeah.
And fuel prices are about to go up again.
Yeah. Now, have you heard people in the some European countries are costing over $100 to fill
a Tesla.
with electricity?
Yes. And this is where my conspiratorial brain.
Well, before you do that, we spoke about this, but last pod, but I didn't do the I did the research after. Do you know what? Well, you do know because I told you what percentage of our electricity is renewable in Australia?
Yeah, it's like 8%.
8%. And do you know of that 8%? Do you know how much is solar and wind?
No.
2.
Right.
Okay, and then so 36% of the 8%
Yeah.
is burning agricultural waste.
Yeah, so it's like sugar cane mulch burn-offs
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I bet you if you asked anyone on the street, they would not think
No,
that's the
because
case.
again,
And that's as per a government website.
sugar cane mulch is renewable energy
Yeah.
because you can grow it again.
Yeah.
Like-
but also you're sucking out carbon. That's where you suck carbon to grow it, and then
Yeah.
you put it back into
To burn it.
The
Yeah.
circle of life.
Yeah, the circle of energy. Yeah, there's like as Alex was saying, there's stories coming out of particular.
Was it Netherlands?
Yeah, some or Norway maybe. European countries where it's actually costing you more now to fill your Tesla than it is to fill a petrol car because of the energy crisis that they have going on in those countries. And I also caught the start of Friday's No Agenda as well, where they spoke about how, so I think we mentioned it maybe last week, that the UK is increasing their energy caps, their price caps, by 3 times to like $3,500.
Yeah.
Anyway, when the new Prime Minister's come in, she's put in some plan where she's going to be, instead of the cap being, I think it was roughly like $1,800 last year, instead of it going to £3,500, it's going to be capped to like $2,100. But the mechanism was really interesting because in a lot of la-di-da political speech, essentially what she said was the way they were going to be capping it, because they were acknowledging increased costs of production for the energy providers, was not necessarily that they were capping the price on it, but that the government would be funding the difference.
That's what we're doing here.
Right. So you might think, oh, I'm only paying my £2,100 a year, I'm saving £1,400. But your taxpayer dollars are then being used to pay the difference between what it was produced at and what it's actually worth. Which then, where do those taxpayer dollars come from? Printing or borrowing, which increases inflation, which increases the cost of energy. And this merry-go. So in other words, their taxpayer dollars are just literally funding the electricity companies in the back door.
Yep.
Which is price gouging. Again, it's profiteering.
Yep. Absolutely.
So just another example of...
Now, there is a very big market issue, which is the sanctions on Russia. Like,
Yep.
what they can fix their problems if they remove the sanctions, because it's going to increase the supply.
Yeah.
The demand still stays high.
Yep.
And, like, it literally will fix it.
Yeah, so artificial sanctions on Russia is what's affecting the people.
Correct.
But I also think that, and look, maybe if we do create our own new country again, I think electricity should be a state-run utility, and they should make it as cheap as they possibly can.
Nuclear.
Well, yeah, whether it's nuclear or whatever it is, but I think that electricity in a rich first world nation should be classed as a human right, and because everything runs on electricity,
Yeah.
and the state should run it for as cheap as possible.
California's they've got brownouts at the moment. They've been told to cap their air conditioning to like, what's 86 degrees Fahrenheit? Hey Siri, what's 86 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius?
86 degrees.
30. So they've
Yeah.
been told to put their
No,
air
no, it's not even told to. It's worse than that. It's people who've bought these smart air conditioning systems.
Oh, yeah.
They've lost access to their own thermostats.
Right. Don't buy smart shit.
Yeah, smart
it's
shit's
so
stupid.
dumb. It's so
It's
dumb.
dumb shit.
So just quickly, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
The renewables that California have make up 3%, so very similar to here, 3% of their supply.
Mm-hmm.
The nuclear facility that they only use part-time was built in 1985
Right.
and makes 6%.
Yeah.
So all the level of investment that's gone into the renewables, it was something like 10 times the amount that was spent on the nuclear facility.
Yeah, and the nuclear makes double, and it was built 30 years ago.
And is not used to its capacity.
Yeah. And this
We've got to move to nuclear.
But this is the thing that people, because again, the propaganda doesn't tell people the truth. The truth is, like, even with the small amount of renewable energy that we have in Australia, it is massively government subsidised. So, like, when I'm saying that the government should run electricity and it should be a state-run utility, and you might go, oh, that's just going to be wasteful of taxpayer money. No, we're already wasting the taxpayer money by pushing these renewables, which aren't giving us the level of production that we require. At least not now. And I think that we've said it before, you need to invest in both.
Yeah.
You need to bring those technologies into the fore. But the answer is not torpedoing your economy and the living standards of your entire population for probably decades to just on this moral, which again, as you've already detailed, the moral argument of renewable energy is bullshit when you consider we're burning sugarcane mulch for it.
Yeah.
So we're releasing these carbon emissions anyway. Like, it is political grandstanding.
Yeah.
Which justifies the spending of public money and the profiteering by people who've invested in these green technologies that all get the go-aheads from the politicians at the expense of the taxpayers' money and quality of life.
Let's move to a new nuclear republic.
Nuclear republic. So what would you call the nuclear republic of Australia? Like, would you have to change the name of the country if you're starting a new country?
Nah, that might be a bit major.
Yeah.
Nah, that's fine. Keep it the same. I thought that was going to be the perfect close, by the way. And you shat on
and
it.
I stood all over it. Yeah, let us know what you think.
I think the name of this episode is Nuclear Republic.
The Nuclear Republic of Australia?
Yeah. Well, just Nuclear Republic.
Nuclear Republic. Right, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We will see you next week.
Bye.